Could Khamzat Chimaev versus Neil Magny be next? And Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland has recently been announced, along with many other good fights as well, and I'm going to break down all of these topics on today's MMA news reaction video, starting with, could Khamzat Chimaev versus Neil Magny be next? They've both somewhat verbally agreed to fight each other on Twitter recently, going back and forth. Neil Magny responded to a quote from Dana White saying that everyone was scared of Khamzat Chimaev. That came out recently, and Neil Magny said, "I know a guy who's ready" on Twitter, which made Khamzat Chimaev immediately respond with, "I come for you, get ready skinny boy," is what he said to Neil Magny, and Neil Magny said back, "I've been ready." Neil Magny, and he doesn't get enough credit for this, has been very vocal and willing to fight Khamzat Chimaev from the very beginning, but I feel like the UFC wanted to go in a direction of getting Khamzat Chimaev past the Neil Magnys of the world. I mean, I don't know why they gave him Li Jingliang instead. That doesn't really make too much sense because Neil Magny beat Li Jingliang, but either way, Neil Magny's a bit of a better grappler than Li Jingliang. We saw that in their fight when they had it. Neil Magny did out-grapple Li Jingliang in certain moments of that fight and beat him up quite badly, so it is a step up in competition from Li Jingliang. But I feel like the UFC, after the Li Jingliang fight, wanted to go with a top contender to get him straight into the mix for a title shot immediately after one good win. But seeing as Gilbert Burns doesn't like to fight down the rankings that far, and who can blame him, and Vicente Luque's kind of locked up with maybe an idea and chance of fighting Nate Diaz, which is just a free paycheck for him, so I don't blame him for not being willing to jump forward either. Neil Magny is the next guy. Pretty much. He's the next guy right now. He's been calling out Khamzat Chimaev from the beginning. He was originally supposed to be fighting Khamzat Chimaev. If you don't know, that fight was going to be made even before the Leon Edwards one, I feel like. When he was going to first jump into the rankings, Neil Magny was kind of the guy they had the idea of him fighting next. But Neil Magny is a jump up, man. Number 7 in the world right now in the welterweight division. That's a big win for Khamzat Chimaev if he can get it. And I do believe that Khamzat Chimaev will beat Neil Magny. I think he'll go out there. I know I love making Khamzat Chimaev videos. It's so easy to predict his fights. I feel like there's such a hype around this man. I can just say again here, I reckon Khamzat Chimaev's going to go out there, land a big shot or two, slam Neil Magny on the ground like a baby, and then beat the fuck out of him. It's kind of what I'm going to predict him to do to everyone, so long as he keeps doing it. It's pretty straightforward. I think he's a much better grappler than Neil Magny. It is going to be a bit of a test, and this will tell us if he does struggle with Neil Magny, maybe like a Michael Chiesa level grappler. Like, this will really put perspective on how good his grappling is amongst other good grappling names, because Jake Matthews out-grappled Li Jingliang, Neil Magny himself out-grappled Li Jingliang, but if you can out-grapple Neil Magny, you can put yourself in a position of some really good grapplers in that division that have been able to do that, including names like Michael Chiesa, who's one of the better grapplers in the welterweight division, but Sean Brady even out-grappled him, so this would put real good perspective on how good of a grappler Khamzat Chimaev really is. If he can go out there and beat a guy like Neil Magny and dominate him in the first round, he puts himself above Sean Brady, clearly. I think he already is, but this would cement it so it's like, it's established. He's a better grappler than Sean Brady, a better grappler than Michael Chiesa, and then we could really fall in with the hype of Khamzat Chimaev. And I feel like he is going to beat Neil Magny, and this is a great fight for him, of course. If they can keep it active is what I want to see, though. Main event of a fight night in January, because we need one more January card. I don't want to wait 4 weeks for a UFC card after the last December one until the middle of January. Makes no fucking sense in the world. There's no Bellator on. There's fucking nothing on during that time. I'm not waiting 4 weeks for any combat sports. That won't be happening. So we can headline a fight night with this card in January at the start of the year, maybe, who knows, or put it on that January pay-per-view card, because I believe that Greg Hardy versus Alexei Olenek is on that January pay-per-view card, and that's a problem that must be fixed. That needs to be fixed immediately. Greg Hardy should no longer be on the main card of a pay-per-view. Let's plant Neil Magny versus Khamzat Chimaev as the opener of that main card, and that card will be done and will be a huge card again with Khamzat Chimaev's name announced. And Neil Magny's a pretty big name in the UFC as well, and he's been on main cards of pay-per-views before. He's been in main events of fight nights. This is a big fight for Khamzat Chimaev, and if he wins this one, it puts him, I believe, at number 6 and potentially number 5 in the UFC welterweight rankings. And I'll tell you why. Even though Neil Magny's number 7, if he beats Neil Magny and Masvidal loses again or remains inactive, and in all honesty, let's talk about it seriously. Masvidal's lost to Thompson. He's lost to Usman twice. He hasn't been winning much, and I don't think he has a single ranked win in the welterweight division, other than Michael Chiesa recently, or a long time ago at the 155-pound division. But either way, I think if Khamzat Chimaev beats Neil Magny, he's beat Li Jingliang, Neil Magny, 2 solid wins. he should move above Masvidal anyway and go to number 6. And if Wonderboy loses to Bilal Muhammad's not going ahead of Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev could secure number 5 from this, and then Gilbert Burns can't say, he's too far down the rankings. No, you're going to have to bring that wide-ass neck of yours and take on Khamzat Chimaev for a title elimination bout, and it'll be perfect. So keep him active, have him fight in January, and then I'll tell you what to do next. When McGregor fights Tony Ferguson in May or April, probably May, when he fights Tony Ferguson in May, or whoever he takes on in May in a pay-per-view main event, the co-main event, which can't be a title fight, will be Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev in a title elimination bout. Perfect, it writes itself. I can't wait for the matchup if it's going to go down that way. I'm immediately looking over Neil Magny, and I understand I'm doing that, and it's, I shouldn't be doing it. I don't know why I'm doing it, because Neil Magny can really fuck up plans sometimes, but I just don't feel like he's going to, because Chimaev, he just, he doesn't get hit by people, and he destroys them and treats them like children. And, it's kind of tough. And I don't see what anyone's going to do about it at welterweight unless they're big enough, which none of them are, I don't believe. But Magny's a big guy. But he's just so... Even in the Michael Chiesa fight, man, I know he lost a grappling to Michael Chiesa, and I think I can use that as evidence to say that he'll lose the grappling here as well. But even against Michael Chiesa, it's not just that he lost the grappling, but he lost himself the grappling. Like, he's so porridge-brained that it's like he pulled Chiesa on top of him. I just don't trust him to grapple with Chimaev, who I just watched out grapple Jack Hermansson. Like, it's really hard to unsee what he did to Jack Hermansson in the first round of their grappling match. And I can just see him doing that to most people, if not all people at welterweight, especially Neil Magny. Good fight, though. Big test. I would like it to be a 5-rounder, maybe. That'd be interesting if Magny can survive. It adds an extra element of, to the fight, rather than just saying, it's a 3-rounder, Chimaev ain't going to gas at all, there's no chance he will. He'll win this fight easily. It's actually like a bit more mystique around the fight if it's a 5-rounder, but put it on the main card of the January pay-per-view. 3-rounder, make it happen. It'll add a solid... honestly, at this point, I reckon Chimaev's worth about 100k pay-per-view buys. I would say. If Nate Diaz is worth like 250,000 pay-per-view buys, 200,000 maybe, I reckon Chimaev's maybe not 100k, probably about 80, 90k. If he wins this next one, he'll be at 100k pay-per-view buy worth. I think he's got a big enough name. He's a giant name now, so he definitely brings some value. Probably 100k pay-per-view buys right now, so add him on the pay-per-view card and make big fucking cards next year. Moving on to other news that's occurred. Jack Hermansson, speak of the man I just said got ragdolled by Khamzat Chimaev in the first round of their grappling match. Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland will headline a UFC fight night on February the 5th. Next year, of course. There is no other February 5th possible. I don't know why I said next year. I don't know why I needed to clarify it. You guys aren't fucking retarded. Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland. I like the matchup. It's perfect. This means you can do Vettori versus Rockhold in the meantime, because there's no one else for Vettori to fight right now. Other than Imavov, maybe. That could be a matchup that gets made, but Rockhold would be cool as well. Maybe give Imavov one more guy outside the top 3-5 and then give him the jump up for his title elimination bout, because it's a bit soon for him in his career. But Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland, perfect matchup. Absolutely perfect. I was worried they were going to do Sean Strickland versus Darren Till. I don't want to see that. I want to see Sean Strickland fighting someone coming off a whim. Like, Darren Till's on a 3-fight losing streak or whatever he's on, 2-fight losing streak. Didn't look good in his last one against Derek Brunson. I don't need to see Sean Strickland face a loser. I need to take him really seriously against a top contender coming off a win, showing they're still with it. He beat Edmund Shabazian pretty dominantly, at least as good as Nasruddin Imavov did, but he didn't finish him. But similar, out-grappled him as the rounds went on and took him down as the rounds went on, even though Imavov did it slightly better. Hermansson did it first, of course. This is a big fight for Sean Strickland. I feel like Hermansson's got this one in the bag. I feel like Sean Strickland's a bit small for the division, and I don't think he's going to be strong enough to keep Jack Hermansson from taking him down. And I also really like this, and I mentioned this before they even had their wrestling match. Jack Hermansson's grinding and training his grappling to get people to the ground. It's his main problem in his grappling right now. If you bring him to the ground, like Kelvin Gastelum by throwing him to the ground, he'll wrap up a leg, he'll get something real quick. If you try and take him down again, I believe he rocked Jacare. If he rocks you and puts you on the ground, he'll dominate on the ground against you. Once you're on the ground and he's on you, he's got you. That's what he does. He's Jack Hermansson. That's his gig. But he has trouble getting people there from the stand-up position. It's one of his big problems. And I like that recently he's specialised his training in grappling. getting people to the ground, working on his wrestling. He likes to do a bit of jiu-jitsu. He's fallen back in love with the wrestling, and he took on Khamzat Chimaev. He didn't have to do that. Didn't have to take on Chimaev and risk embarrassing himself, but he steps up and he did okay in the second round as well. He started stuffing some takedowns, looking for his own ones. He stuffed a couple of takedowns in the first round. He got back up to his feet a couple of times in the first round. Hermansson's a great grappler. I think he's massively improved on it recently. Having a training partner in Khamzat Chimaev that you can work back and forth with is amazing right now in his career to help him bring up that grappling level. And I think he can out-grapple Sean Strickland, but everyone says Strickland's jiu-jitsu is way better than his stand-up, and his stand-up's been working for him really well at middleweight so far. But Bisping said this, another guy said this on a show I watched, and I think another guy even said it on a show I watched. Like, when they've been with Strickland or trained with Strickland, his grappling is actually way better than his stand-up, but he just doesn't like doing it. So there is a chance that we get to see Strickland's grappling, but I just haven't seen any evidence of it. And if you haven't shown it, then you haven't got really experience using it in the cage recently. So it's going to be like, even though you've done it in training and stuff, it's going to be a bit of a foreign feeling for you doing it under the pressure of the bright lights in a main event of a fight night on your back with Jack Hermansson on top of you. Hermansson uses his grappling in MMA, and he's used to doing it, and he's specialising in it recently. I like Jack Hermansson's chances, but I could see if this stays on the feet, Sean Strickland just peppering up Hermansson's face for 5 rounds like Vettori did. But the difference between Vettori and Strickland is that Vettori's got solid takedown defense, some of the best takedown defense pound for pound in the UFC in my opinion. And I think that's the main difference. I haven't seen it from Strickland, and Vettori's way bigger and stronger than Strickland. It could be interesting. I'm going to lean Hermansson getting it done in moments with the takedowns, getting positional control, and Strickland winning moments on the feet, but Hermansson doing enough by mixing in the grappling. I really could sway my mind. I'm going to watch some fights of Strickland when he's been taken to the ground and see what he kind of does in those positions and when he takes opponents to the ground again. But my initial response to watching this is Jack Hermansson wins this one by 3-2 decision, mixing in takedowns. I think it'll be a war, a competitive fight, but Hermansson will get it done. Great matchup, though. Really great matchup. But I think Hermansson's too big, too strong, too grappling heavy. And I think he'll mix it in and make Strickland worry about them. And Strickland's got a very uptight style as well. And he doesn't have much power for Hermansson to fear on the feet. And I think that's been a problem for Hermansson as well. Taking on people with big power that he has to worry about. Even though he's got a decent chin. Like Cannonier, you can see how hesitant he was to go in there and really shoot for a takedown well. And he kind of got bitten in the behind for fucking being so hesitant in the middle of the fight that he got cracked with big shots. I mean, that big uppercut as well, he was like shivering. You could see he was so jittery out there against Cannonier because of the power, and I think these low power guys like Strickland could make him a bit more comfortable in those situations. I'm leaning Hermansson, but I might switch. But I'm leaning Hermansson off the initial response to seeing the fight. A couple of other fights have been made as well. Terence McKinney versus Fransisco Figueiredo has been rebooked for a fight night on February 26th, which is a big fight night, so I'm looking forward to it. That's a good fight. I think that's the Makhachev versus Dariush fight night, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to check that right now on Tapology. That would be great if it is. It is. That's the Makhachev Dariush pay-per-view. Or not pay-per-view. Fight night card. With Ignacio Bahamondes versus Rongju. With Armand Sarukian versus Yoel Alvarez. With Makhmud Muradov versus Misha Serkinov. This is coming along very, very nicely. I like this card. And Sean Strickland versus Jack Hermansson is on February the 5th on a card with Puneli Soriano versus Nick Maximov and Julian Arosa, Steven Peterson, Ian Heinich, Sam Alvey. Yeah, not so good. Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Carlston Harris is on that card. We're piecing together the first part of next year, and I'm looking forward to it. And a couple of other fights also got announced recently. Luana Carolina versus Molly fucking McCann, lad. They got announced to fight in the women's flyweight division on March 19th, the London card, and something else got announced on the London card as well. The return of Jake Hadley. I know he's not like a long retired champion or anything, but I'm really hyped up on this guy from the UK. I think him and Aspinall have the best chance at a belt. I know Arnold Allen's there. Well, I should say of the next generation. Edwards and Allen are already there, so they've obviously got more of a chance because they've done like the hard work to get there in the first place. So they're only a few steps away at least. Leon might be like one step away. But of the next wave of UK talent, I think Jake Hadley and Tom Aspinall are the ones. Tom Aspinall's, of course, already ranked, and I think a lot of people can see that he's very good. But I've been paying attention to Jake Hadley from the start of his career. Before he was a pro, I saw him beat Akimolo Zulu at fucking EFC in South Africa. They had a matchup. Dricus du Plessis, I believe, was on one of the cards at some point as well. And that's where I sort of got introduced to him through the EFC. But Jake Hadley, very good fighter. Beat Luke Shanks at Cage Warriors. He beat Blaine O'Driscoll at Bellator. He beat a couple of Bellator guys as well before the flyweight division got cut. I believe he's the best flyweight in Europe. Behind him is Mohamed Makayev, who might be better than him, but is like a step behind him in terms of like actual achievements at the European level. But he might be actually better than Jake Hadley, and he's younger, so he probably has more potential. But Jake Hadley versus Fransisco Figueiredo. He called him out. They gave him the matchup. It's a pretty easy matchup for him, in my opinion. I think the odds are going to be something like minus fucking... I don't know what the odds are going to be. I could see like a... I could honestly see like an 8-1 in odds, or like a minus 800, minus... It could be fucking like... Sometimes with the odds, as soon as it goes past a certain barrier, it just goes fucking skyrocketing. Way above. So I could honestly see some ridiculous number for these odds. Hadley's got a solid chin. He's got good cardio. He's got fucking amazing grappling. He's got good stand-up as well. He's got good power. He's confident. He's big for the division. He's got long reach for the division as well. He's a physical freak. I think Fransisco Figueiredo arguably shouldn't be in the UFC, and he lost to Malcolm Gordon and did not look good. So I think this is a good matchup for Hadley. They've set him up with a good win on the London card to establish his name in the UFC. There obviously could be an upset. One thing I noticed from Fransisco Figueiredo's game is that he uses good body shots, much like his brother does as well, but he uses them a bit more than the Davison Figueiredo. A little bit too much sometimes, but Jake Hadley is prone to body shots now and again. Does keep a very high guard, like a bit of a Poirier guard at times. You could slide a couple of body shots in, but I just think Hadley's going to take him down, and watching Figueiredo on the ground so far in his career, it hasn't looked good. So I'm going to go over Jake Hadley. Couple of shots on the feet early. Maybe he cracks Figueiredo on the chin. Gets hit a couple of times back and thinks, fuck this, I'm shooting a takedown. Takes down Figueiredo. Chokes him out in the first round by rear naked choke. I got Jake Hadley. I think he's going to do quite well in the UFC. But we'll see how it goes. And also Gerald Meerschaert got a replacement opponent of Dustin Stoltzfus. Thank fucking God. Good for him. Good for Gerald Meerschaert, because they wanted to give him a real tough prospect coming up. And I really do respect that Meerschaert's fucking getting another opponent. It's a free paycheck for him, maybe against Dustin Stoltzfus. An interesting matchup nevertheless, but I do believe he'll beat this one. He'll beat this opponent in Dustin Stoltzfus. He's just got such a downgrading opponent for the same amount of money. I'm happy for Gerald Meerschaert. And listen, maybe he can win this one and start looking towards a ranked opponent next. If I was Gerald Meerschaert, I'd call out Chris Weidman, because no one's doing it, because it'll be quite embarrassing to call out a guy coming off a broken leg injury like Chris Weidman, who's a bit older. But if anyone's going to do it, Meerschaert, call out Chris Weidman. Why not? No one's doing it. You'll probably get the fight against Chris Weidman anyway. And that would be a decent scrap. And it would be in the co-main event of a fight night. It could be on the main card of a pay-per-view, the headliner of the prelims of a pay-per-view. It would be a big fight to take. And also, he's coming off a broken leg. He's a bit older. He's not been looking as good as he was recently. And maybe an active Meerschaert could get the win over Weidman. I'd probably pick him to if he beats Dustin Stoltzfus impressively. So yeah, I think Meerschaert's been looking good recently. If he wins this one, he arguably could be ranked number 15 at middleweight. Who's there right now? Edmund Shabazian? Done nothing but lose recently. I could maybe see this one putting Meerschaert at number 15. He's beaten a ton of good guys. Trevin Giles. Makhmud Muradov's an amazing win to get recently as well. He's beat a bunch of good opponents. So I'm going to go with Gerald Meerschaert here against Dustin Stoltzfus. Call out Weidman and establish yourself, and then take a fight in the top 10 or something like that. We'll see how it goes. Good matchup though. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.